All right, here's a question for you. As a collector, when is enough enough? Well, what's up everyone, and welcome back to the channel for another awesome topic today, and yes, potentially controversial as well. You know we love those. That is, when it comes to adding new pieces to your collection, when is enough enough? Now, we're going to be talking about that in just a quick second, but as always, if this is your first time with me, go ahead and hit me with a presumptive like, and while you're here, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to this channel while you're at it. To all my lurkers out there that watch these videos and have not yet subscribed, today is the day. Go ahead and subscribe to this channel, turn on your notifications so that you know when new content drops. But enough of that, let's get into our main topic of today, because we're going to be talking a little bit transparency when it comes to me. We're going to be pulling back the curtain on my collecting, because I'm going to be honest, I'm at a little bit of a breaking point. There's some things I've been trying to talk to myself about and asking, is enough enough when it comes to collecting? Because there are certainly some things that I have said, such as when it comes to getting duplicates of figures, I'm never going to do that. That's one of my rules. And then, 4 or 5 01st later, a bazillion Captain America, Thor, and Iron Mans later, I blew right past that one. I said, you know what? Once I get this DTOF and I fill up this display, that's going to be it. And what do you know? 20 plus DTOFs later, I am still kicking. I've also said that when I fill up all my storage, I have no other places to put the boxes, I'm going to be done. Well, ding ding, ladies and gentlemen, that is where I'm at. I am out of room in my display. I'm out of room in my storage. So now we're going to have to answer some important questions, and maybe some questions you've asked for yourself as well. When is enough enough? The truth is, as collectors, we never stop collecting. That's why we're called collectors. But unless you're actually making thought-out decisions, you are not collecting, you are then hoarding, which is not a good place to be in. So here are a few questions that I'd like you to answer for yourself, and we'll do a little bit of introspection. Let me ask you, do you have a bunch of boxes piled up in the corner or potentially in the closet? Are you on an unlimited amount of payment plans with no foreseeable end in sight? Do you have a bunch of displays that are cramped and you can't put any other figures in it? Then perhaps you need to ask yourself, is enough enough? Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not stopping my collecting. I'm not getting rid of my collection, and neither should you. This is a part of me. I'm a lifelong collector. I'll always be doing that. But because I want to always keep doing that, there are some necessary adjustments I'll need to make in order to keep collecting. My wife and I were sitting at a Chinese buffet just this week when it really hit me when she said, hey, I see a lot of things come in, but I never see anything go out. And I said, you know what? That's exactly right. I've been stockpiling all kinds of figures. I have filled up all these displays, but you know what? At some point, some things have to come out. Otherwise, you're going to explode. You're not going to have places to put anything. And as I've said, display these figures. These are beautiful pieces of art. You do not want them cramped in a corner. You do not want them cramped into a box, just sitting there, wasting away. Display these proudly. So with that being said, if I want to continue to add pieces to my collection, I'm going to need to make some changes. So with that being said, here are 4 tips to get you and me back on course. Now, all these are extremely simple, and you may say that's a little bit too basic, but sometimes hearing them will trigger you to actually move you to action. And the first thing I would say is that before you add any other piece, and before I particularly add any other piece, I will need to move something out of my collection. So number 1, move something out before you move something new in. Now, as I said, I have way too many duplicate figures, and I started thinking to myself, yeah, it's cool if you have a bunch of clone troopers, if that is the type of display you're going for. But for me, I want to particularly display multiple different characters, and having 4 of the exact same, although they may be a little bit different depending on how you pose them with the helmet, the visor, the gun, whatever it may be, I decided, you know what, I don't need to have 4 501st Troopers. 1 is going to do just fine. So with that being said, I'm going to make some changes and move a couple of my duplicates out. Now, for example, I have Hot Toys Jango Fett and I have Sideshow Jango Fett. I do not need 2 Jango Fetts in my collection, so with that being said, I am moving on and getting the Jango that is from Sideshow out of the way. Now, whatever it may be that you say, okay, I'm willing to move this out of my collection to make some room, that is when some hard decisions need to be made and some tough critical thinking needs to be made when it comes to your collection. Are there some things that are simply unmovable? You say, you know what, this is something that is a staple of my collection. It will never leave. I would personally write those things down, maybe put your top 5, top 10 figures that are never leaving the collection. At the top of my list, as you can probably guess, number 1 is Darkseid Anakin Skywalker. That is my favorite figure in my entire collection. It's not going anyway. My Blitzway Ghostbusters, they're not going anywhere. You can actually see them right there. My hazmat suit Walter and Jesse from Breaking Bad, those figures aren't going anywhere. So all that to say, figure out what the ones are that you are willing to move out and which ones you can't. Now, I will say, if everything in your display is unmovable, then maybe your collection is done. But I think if you were to do a little bit of hard questioning to yourself, you would find there are some pieces that you aren't in love with. There's something possibly coming in that you would love more. So with that being said, make a top 5 list, make a bottom 5 list, and from that bottom 5, say, okay, these are the ones I'm starting with on moving out. Now, number 2 is evaluate your storage and display options. Now, I have been blessed that I have a good little storage unit inside my home, kind of right outside there, outside next to my office, a little door you've seen me walk into there. That's where I store all my boxes. But I'm going to be honest, with the Christmas decorations, things that my wife has in there, Halloween decorations, and a bunch of boxes, I have officially run out of room. I can't put anything else in there. So all that to being said, I said, okay, if I'm going to add something new, something else naturally has to come out. And it made me stop and realize that I have too many things in storage. We need to move some pieces out. So that is what really started this whole conversation. But I need to ask you that. Think about your storage options. Think about your display. Depends on where you're keeping them. Are you keeping them off-site somewhere in an actual storage unit? Well, if it's full and you don't have any more options to put it in there, maybe time to evaluate. If you're putting them all in your closet, if that is where you put yours, if it's starting to fill up and you don't have any room, say, okay, if I'm going to put anything else in here, I need to move something on. But then also, let's think about the actual displays. As you can see, mine are kind of full, but also you've seen my collection room. You've seen what I've done. I've put a few other different things out in my actual office, put some statues out there, but there are no other options for me putting new display units in here to put new figures. So I'm officially tapping out on my display options. So I ask you that as well. What is your display situation? Are you just continually jamming figures in there? Because if you're just literally stacking them like tomato cans, is that really a good display? If that's the way you want to do it, then by all means do it. But for me, I said, you know what? These are pieces of art. I've said that multiple times. I do not want to just jam these things in there just like a bunch of vegetable cans. These are pieces of art that deserve a lot more room and respect. So one of the things I'm doing is that I'm moving some pieces out, as I said. So look at your storage options, look at your display options, and find out what works for you. Number 3, I would ask yourself to look at your purchase history and ask yourself, why were you buying certain figures at this particular time? The first thing I would say, are you completing a line? Because if that be the case, this is a very hard hobby to complete lines in. Being a completionist in a 6-scale world is a very dangerous game to play. Now you may say, okay, I want all the Guardians of the Galaxy. Cool. Well, that is a line that you can complete. If you want to say, I want every Marvel figure, that is something you may not be able to complete, and maybe something that you say, okay, I need to decide on what teams I want to collect, what movie franchises I want to collect. And from there, that will make your collecting a little bit easier. Because from there, you can say, if I'm trying to complete a line, if I'm chasing a grail, then once I get that grail, I can be done. But that also brings up another interesting point, is that not everything can be a grail. Remember, with the Holy Grail, there was only one to run down. So not everything can be a grail. So ask yourself, is this really a necessity to add this to my collection? Or maybe you just had a little bit of extra money. You wanted to treat yourself. Nothing wrong with that either, because everyone deserves to have a little bit of spoiling done. But that does lead me to number 4. Is this a hobby or is it an addiction? And that is the most important question you can ask, because if you're just buying things because you are addicted to buying things, that is not a healthy collector. Make sure that this is still a hobby and not a habit. Like anything, that can become an addiction too. The idea of having to buy something simply for the thrill or to make yourself feel better is not healthy. As a lifelong collector, you need to make sure that you are in it for the long haul. With that being said, I would like to challenge you for 30 days to simply stop and say, can I go without adding anything to my collection? Find an accountability partner and say, hey, would you be willing to make sure that I don't add anything to my collection for the next 30 days? Now, this is controversial because, as I said, some people said, I want to collect what I want when I want. No one's going to tell me what I can do. And I agree with you. But as I said, it is nothing wrong with taking a little bit of personal inventory and making sure that you are not addicted to this hobby, making sure that it's still a hobby and not a habit. So take 30 days. Don't add anything to your collection and see how you feel. See how you respond. Are you itching to add something because you haven't bought anything? Maybe it is a habit and not a hobby. Just something to think about, because I'm going to be doing the same thing. I want to make sure that I'm not addicted to this, and I want to show that I am willing to take 30 days off and not add anything to the collection, because then I will know that I'm making smart choices. Collecting can be something that is a lifelong hobby, but you can quickly lose the joy out of collecting and in turn lose part of your identity. If you're like me, collecting is part of my identity. And I've lost my identity as a collector before, and it's a terrible place to be in, and I hated every moment of it. Don't let that be you. Answer those questions honestly and be able to decide when is enough for you. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us here today. Let me know down below some of the things that you are willing to try to make sure that this remains a hobby and not a habit. If you're not done so already, go ahead and give me a presumptive like on this video. I would appreciate it. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already. And as always, I will be seeing you in our next video.